Alright, everybody, so today we'll be going over a book called Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy by the author Joseph Schumpeter, who was a Austrian economist, not to be confused with the Austrian School of Economics or Libertarian Economics, but rather an economist of Austrian descent who was at one point a finance minister of Austria. Getting right into it, he starts talking about Marx and Marxism. So he states that Marx was different from other socialist theorists because he knew how to better tap into the minds of the masses, but at the same time not idealize them and come off as a prophet predicting the eventual victory of the proletariat. Commenting on Marx's sociology, Schumpeter states that when Marx analyzed religion, art, etc., he didn't boil it down to economic factors alone, but rather he focused on the economic factors that influence these things, as that was what interested him the most. Marx's philosophy is no more materialistic than Hegel's or any other philosophy according to Schumpeter. Engels put more emphasis on the idea that economic factors were the sole cause of society. Schumpeter also says Marxists undermine the role of social systems that existed prior to capitalism today, such as family units and religion. Schumpeter critiques the labor theory of value on the basis that it only ever applies to perfect competition and doesn't apply to imperfect competition. Marx's notion that economic misery will necessarily lead to revolt is, according to Schumpeter, a non sequitur. Schumpeter says that European colonization is an example of class collaboration more so than class warfare, and Marx happens to miss this point. He argues that he believes capitalism cannot survive. He argues that it is true capitalism has improved the quality of life, yet at the same time it still hasn't solved poverty and unemployment. But he also says that it is wrong to simply blame capitalism as the only system that does this to society. Many modern commodities that are available to the common man today were not available to royalty in the past, such as dentistry, high-speed transportation, and electricity. All these things improve life, yet a European king did not have them. So in some sense, capitalism has done good for humanity. It just can't last. And what he means by that is that capitalism is ever evolving. He says that socialism can manifest in many forms: patriotic, internationalist, religious, atheist, and democratic or dictatorial. Modern capitalism created the standard of living we have now. Capitalism is not a static system and always undergoing a form of evolution. Some industries may survive on their own, but then there is the issue of creative destruction, which destroys industries through the act of producing something new, which makes these industries superfluous. And if they may provide some value, it doesn't compare to what is new. A monopoly will have a better time innovating because they have a lower risk given to having no competitors. And if an innovation fails, they have little to lose given they are the only business available within a given field to begin with. In a state of perfect competition, where businesses thrive, there is no room for innovation or new methods of production because they are unnecessary. There is no need to change anything if there is competition already, yet there is an equilibrium as it would entail unnecessary risk. Schumpeter states that perfect competition is an impossibility, and even if it was, it is also inferior because it leads to a lack of innovation, which semi-low risk businesses can guarantee when they drastically outperform other businesses. Capitalism instills a sense of discipline because of competition for survival, whereas socialism still has discipline, but it is less personal and more so top down, and this could over time reduce the need for self discipline, which has existed with us forever. The socialist regime will have more tools of discipline at its disposal. They will be able to punish the workers because they control the employment sector. The worker cannot look for another job because there is only one job for him. The regime could also control his ability to sustain himself in other ways, such as his access to food and the like. There could also be no strikes against this government because it would be considered mutiny, and intellectuals, as a group, would already, since most are socialists, would be in full agreement with the government or absorbed into its body already. Schumpeter argues that we must judge socialism not by its particular instantiations, but rather by its principles. Socialism, in a state of maturity, would look like a slow reform of the state, where all institutions are slowly merged into the state control and run by a single bureaucratic body deciding how it functions. Socialism, in a state of immaturity, would be violent and very quick to leading to the inflation of currency, since it would arrest the economic system during a period of violent revolution. The violent revolution wouldn't benefit the common man, it would only benefit those who engineer the revolution itself. Oftentimes, socialists will have to contradict themselves regarding democracy, as it will take an undemocratic form in the process of its instantiation. Democracy may lead to bad outcomes, according to Schumpeter, such as the masses agreeing to persecute a minority. However, to say that it would not be preferable in this instance would be to choose an outcome that would be instantiated by a non-democratic system would be asinine. Democracy is supposed to be a tool that we use to get better outcomes. If a better tool is available, then we should utilize it. Democratic systems are a means to an end, not an end in themselves, says Schumpeter. A problem with democracy is that it doesn't take into consideration the various wills at play. The more modern society becomes, the more the interests of society will differ. He also points out that democracy requires the participation of all citizens, yet most citizens seem to care little of the local issues that require their voting. The average citizen only cares about his immediate surroundings, his social networks, his family, his business, etc. He feels as if he is not responsible for the dealings of higher politics within his state or village. Schumpeter states that democracy doesn't mean freedom. All societies have certain degrees of freedom, but no society has absolute freedom. Freedom is an issue of degree, and some democracies can be free, some not. He also distinguishes between the will of the people and the will of the majority. He says the will of the majority is not necessarily the same as the will of the people. The majority voice on a certain issue is not necessarily the voice of the people because the people refers to the whole of society, and the majority simply refers to the certain amount of people who participate in a given election, which may, and is often not, the majority of the population. For example, if you have a population of 100 people, the 100 people are the people in this instance. Yet, if 50 of those people out of the 100 people vote, and 40 of those people vote one way, and 10 the other, the 40 people represent the will of the majority, but not the will of the people, considering that the will of the people would have to be the average will of the 100 people, not just the 40 out of the 50 within which represents a large faction of the population. Democracy doesn't require that all the parts of government be subject to it. Many parts of the government can be elected undemocratically, while some democratically. Competition in democracy can incentivize election candidates to create false issues and present themselves as a solution to these issues as they please. This would help garner a sense of trust and respect amongst the masses. Schumpeter ends this by saying that socialist democracy would end up being just as much of a sham as capitalist democracy due to the fact that it would be a dictatorship over the proletarian peoples rather than by the proletarian peoples. Socialism would create a much more disciplined society, especially regarding the workers, and all factories would become a highly ordered and centralized system more so than under capitalism.